Anybody, uh, any good books people could recommend? And I like more toward the self-development, psychology, neurology, biology is always kind of cool, especially the book, just got one on the biology of longevity. As you get older, that becomes important, you know. So so yeah. So anyway, anybody read any books or have listened to any books lately that they really liked? No?
You do,
Bueller?
do you listen to podcasts?
Yeah, podcasts are good. As
I
long as
like
it's not
one.
Joe Rogan.
Oh God, no. I like one called Heavyweight is good. This guy is a interlocutor for people who have issues and don't know how to take the first step forward to fix them. So he intervenes and helps them to resolve whatever issue is going on within their family or friends, and it's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Heavyweight, huh? Okay. Cool.
I've been rereading Boundaries and finding it interesting by feeding it through some of the ideas of neurobiology that I already know. Um, Recovering Sanity might be interesting because it has a history of the um, mental health treatments. And On Combat, if you haven't read that, is
Oh, that
that
one, yeah.
yeah.
Huh. It's been a long time since that's an older book on combat. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Usually,
been revisiting it too. And with because their focus is how to be more peaceful, and since we need some peace.
cool.
Yeah, the one I used to listen to was Mark Divine, but he switched up to all of his stuff goes on YouTube, and a lot of times you can't download video on the road.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I'll have some. So if you think of any, just email me if you have my email or whatever. DM me, all that cool stuff. Cool. Let me do this. All right. Trying to
What is
think.
something you want to learn or makes you curious?
Um,
Longevity.
Longevity is good. You know, I'm on this peptide kick, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm really into this peptide kick.
Oh,
So
for mental clarity.
no arthritis, BPH 157. Right. So um,
Have you ever looked at longevity through the lens of the adrenal glands and
yeah,
the
mine are fried between the
like
coffee.
Dr. Lamb has books. They're medical grade though, but Dr. Lamb has books about that. If I don't know if they're on Audible, they might be.
Mm.
I
Is
can
that the Tai
also
Chi?
Yeah, most
Tai
of the
Chi,
books
right?
now are. Oh, go ahead, David.
I was saying I do this Dr. Lamb Tai Chi for arthritis prevention. It's pretty cool. Is that the same Dr. Lamb? Oh, okay.
I don't know. He's based in Los Angeles and he's a medical doctor. LAM is his name. He might. I mean, he has some uh yoga for rehabilitating specifically the adrenals and people who are bedridden, and I've been through that, so I did some of that. But it could be. I don't know. There's lots of Dr. Lambs.
Oh yeah, this one's a Chinese guy, Dr. Lamb, that does the Tai Chi for arthritis, TCA. So it's pretty good.
But I'm
It's
not
just
giving up my coffee or my sport drinks. I know they're frying my adrenals, but
yeah, that's a problem, sir.
we'll just take whatever joy I have left in my life. I don't drink. I don't do drugs generally. I don't fool around. Jesus Christ, give me something.
If you don't believe it, then it's fine.
Mhm.
You know.
I was wondering if you felt any different with the Tai Chi with the arthritis, but you can make coffee a treat. There's instead of like maybe change the morning routine, and that can, I don't know, it's helped me.
It got me sober. I ain't changing that no matter what. So
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I drink coffee still. But yeah, every day I do Tai Chi for arthritis. I don't have arthritis, but that's because I've been doing it for many years. So one of our members of the NGH, Deborah Yaffe, she does a weekly class and teaches the Dr. Lamb Tai Chi method of preventative arthritis and movements and chi movements, and so I love it. It's amazing. I've been trying to get Dr. Horton to join every week. I was like, "Come on, man, jump into the Tai Chi. It's wonderful."
yeah, it's at a bad time for me. Just, I know if it's important, I'd make the time, but So yeah, so whatever. Yeah, so those are some good books. You know, I've added stretching. I've changed my workout routine. I was overtraining. You know,
Well, I can send you some videos. You can check them out in your spare time and just go with it. It's relaxing and get your joints moving and energy flow through your body, and then you can continue drinking your coffee and all that fun stuff.
we'll see. So everybody else doing?
Videos. Oh, I could do that to stimulate.
Yeah, cool.
What's that?
All right. Well, so what say you, Maria? Any books you're reading or have read recently that you liked?
What have I don't know that you'd be into what I was reading recently. I've been reading the Heated Rivalry series to keep it light and have a little more joy in the world for
Okay.
myself.
I'm
So
gonna.
I don't
think
know if you're into gay hockey players, but it's a fantastic series if you
don't
want to.
judge.
I don't judge.
They got me out of Vietnam.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it light and happy over here, so haven't been doing any serious reading.
I think I'm going to get at least one marketing kind of book too. Something on marketing, the new world marketing. The bad part is by the time they write a book, it's probably 80% outdated. But still,
It's all
You
AI.
can listen to you can listen to a bunch of Gary V's different podcasts or
I can handle him for about an hour.
correct. And then it's repetitive. It's you got it and you can move on.
Then I'm hanging a noose from my wife's trapeze to kill myself after about an hour.
Make sure you
Cool.
go to the rope store and the rickety stool store.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's do something real quick. I was going to talk about just for a little bit the power of no and one other thing. There I am. Good. All right. In the class I just taught, a lot of you were in it. If not, just get in touch with me. I'll let people preview it. It was the first run of a different take of NLP, focusing it through negotiation and profiling kind of information. But the guy that wrote if you haven't read if you want to read an interesting book, it's called Never Split the Difference, and that's by Chris Voss. A lot of big stories about what he did. He was the lead hostage negotiator especially for kidnappings all over the world for I think about 8 years or something like that. Some cool stories if you like the stories. But he also, one of the things he does better than most people in that world is he translates it into real world usage, right? Breaks some of the myths of what people think about the negotiation process from their viewpoint. But he kind of, he's in the business world and how to do that. But one of the things he says constantly is, he calls it the power of no. Because for years, if you're in the sales world, going back to 70s, 80s, in my case, I'm a little long in the tooth. They always talked about the yes set. Get 3 yeses and yes, yes, yes. Okay, fine. But that's kind of lost its punch, if you will. It's plus there's I think when they teach that, now they know there's different types of yeses, right? And I'll slaughter how he describes it, but he goes, there's the yes you say just to shut people up. You're not going to do anything, right? Just yes. Hey, don't you think you ought to quit drinking coffee? Yes. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, but I might say yes. Don't you think it's a good idea? It could be yes, yes, right? So there's the generalized yes, which doesn't do anything. Then there's the yes, I agree with you, but I'm not necessarily going to take any action, right? Reed's familiar with this one, right? People will say yes, but they're not going to take any action, right? It's kind of hard to tell the difference when you're going through it. But the yes you're going for is more of a yes where there's a commitment. It's like, and he stresses the difference between if you're talking to somebody and they say, you're right. The second yes is one of those, you're right. Doesn't mean anything. The yes we're trying to get to is that's right, which means that's true for me. Which doesn't mean they'll take action, not so much, but when they say that's right, then they're much more aligned with the way you're looking at things. Right? Right. So the general yes, it may not get anywhere. So he starts, and they use this a lot at that organization, in that high stakes world of like crisis hostage negotiation, where you start with a question that gives them the ability to say no. Right? Because we're used to, when you say no, it gives you some time. Right? And if you ever raise kids, this one happens, right? Kid comes to you and says, Dad, can I do this? No. Now, what is it you want? Right? But there's something freeing about saying no, right? And he uses the example of rather than saying, is now a good time to talk or is now a bad time to talk? Is now a bad time to talk or is now a good time to talk? Generally, especially telemarketers, they'll say it's now a good time to talk, right? They're going for the yet, not, they're going for you to say, to agree to talk. But if you say it's now a bad time to talk, if they say, no, it kind of disarms you. If you say no, I got a couple minutes, then you'll share, right? And as of course, if you say is now a bad time to talk and they say yes, then you just end the conversation. I know some people say, well, what do you do then? Well, you shut up. You STFU, just then you're out. Don't, because you ever had that where you tell somebody you don't have time to talk and they won't shut up, right? You're never going to get the sale, so you've talked your way out of everything, right? But generally, especially if you say it's now a bad time to talk, and if they say, yeah, but, I might have some time whenever, which may open up the conversation, right? So you want to give people the option, right? And what you're going for is that phenomenon of that's right, right? So you want them to say that's right, not you're right, but that's right. Because then it feels like, you're going to make that change. So that's just if you want more info, there's some in the class. Just reach out to me. I'll send you the link to the raw version we put up on Vimeo, right? David edited it very nicely for what we'll be doing. And then this is what I'm kind of slanting the NLP into, kind of adding to the base level stuff, right? And the one good thing about teaching this kind of stuff is it reminds me to do it. I always tell the story. I was lucky enough to go through that training at Quantico, Virginia, and how I got invited. I'll tell that story again. So if you've already heard it, just whatever, bear with me. and it's I was teaching an NLP class in Arlington, Virginia, which, as Billy knows, had a couple. Everybody there worked for the government in some way, shape, or form. It's Arlington, for God's sakes, right? And these two ladies in the class, they were hypnotists. They'd taken a class in somewhere in Washington, D.C. area, and now hypnosis. Now they were taking NLP. And the one lady said, she worked for the government. That's all she said. And she goes, "Would you like to come talk to my boss?" They're always looking to add information and stuff, and I'm like, "Ah, cool, well, where do you work? What government agency you work for? And, who's your boss?" And she goes, "Well, I worked for the FBI Academy in Quantico." And her boss was either head of the behavioral science unit or the critical incident response group. One of those two. And they're overlayered to each other, right? Critical incident is in part of the overall thing. And, if you're into that kind of thinking, behavioral science, profiling, negotiation, the stuff that they do, how to influence people at a different level, to offer a guy like me, that's like, politically incorrect to say, but it's asking like a Muslim, "Would you like to go to Mecca?" Right? And I'm like, "Well, hell yeah, I'd like to meet your boss," right? So I go in and I start talking to him, and she arranged it, because there's one thing I did learn from Elsa Meldridge and some of the others, which is executive assistants have all the power in an organization. A lot of times they're the ones that can either get you in the room or block you from the room, right? She got me in the room, right? And so I first met the guy. He was very nice. He goes, "Yeah, well, so and so, whatever her name was, says, I should talk to you." We start talking. And again, the cool part of the story is he knew who I was, where I went to school, and all that stuff, right? And that I was in the Army. And at first I'm like taken aback. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You work for the FBI in the 80s, in the early days of computers. It's the FBI. I was just hoping he didn't pull my IRS records, is what I was hoping. And so, we're talking, and he's and I brought in some VHSs of the basic NLP class as a gift. I go, "Here, this is for you. It's basic NLP class." And he goes, "Yeah, he sent some of his people to those trainings in different places." And I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And so we're talking, and he's telling me what they do and how they do it. And I knew it was, the meeting was winding up, so I had to make a pitch, right? Which was, I wanted to go to one of the classes. And I used the technique of, "Director, is it a ridiculous idea for you to invite me here to take one of the classes, profiling or hostage negotiation?" It was still hostage negotiation when I took it. Hostage negotiation. And I might bring a fresh perspective, because, is it a really strange idea to think that the FBI always wants new information? And I already knew, because he kept saying they were constantly farming for new information, new techniques, new technology, and all that, right? And so he goes, "No, it wouldn't be a silly idea." And then we talked for a minute, and before the meeting was over, he invited me to come to one of the classes. But I also knew enough in the back of my head, because the lady told me this: if he says yes, if you ask to come here, lock in a date, right? Because by the time you get to the elevator from his office, he's probably got 7 messages and all this other stuff. And da, 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 da. So, we start talking. He goes, "Well, the profiling course, I really can't get you into that. We get you a lot of info on that stuff. But the hostage negotiation course, which is one of their most popular one, now it's crisis negotiation. It's also one of their biggest. They run them constantly. They train more police officers from not just the FBI, see all the agencies, right?" And so anyway, I get him. He told me some of the dates, and we locked in to go. And he goes, "And you could stay on basically the barracks, which is just like a big hotel there at Quantico, right?" which is kind of cool. You got to go through a Marine Corps base to even get there, right? So first the Marines stop you, and then you get to the other gate. It's the FBI. And so anyway, so I got to stay there and do that class. Then at the end, he goes, I just ask you, give me an hour of your time and tell me what you think, what other things we could do. And they hadn't really been exposed to like what we know as VAK stuff, the meta programs, some of the very simple stuff that from when I was sitting in the class, I thought, maybe you could use this kind of stuff, right? And so that's how I got there. And it was fun to see because I always say that like a lot of us in coaching and NLP and therapy and psychology, everything, we act like, we've got all the whistles and bells. When you get around people that have more whistles and bells, and the stuff that they do, then everything they do is tested in real time. It changed how I looked at all the training, right? The biggest thing it changed was about bringing back, and when I started teaching this again, more role play, right? The whole situation set up on, they give you a scenario and it, maybe Billy knows at that place, they literally have a city at the back in part of the base where they have, looks like a small town. There's a bank, a little bank, a bigger bank. There's a school. There's like a grocery store, a gas station. Of course, then they have some airplanes parked, and it's all to run scenarios, right? So they would take people out, like, the SWAT team would show up, and then they'd say, like, there's a hostage negotiation at this bank. You set up the command post. They show you, and it's to practice in real time, right? As close as possible, right? It's like, if you've ever been in that world, if you're going to practice close quarters combat, you have to practice close quarters combat, right? And so anyway, it was kind of cool, and I forgot how important it is. Even if you're, doing an NLP training in a hotel, you can set up, try to make it as real as possible. What kind of clients are the people really going to work with? So that's when I really started to stress, my training is like, who do you want to work with? Read, or, if it's business people, well, that's the scenario we're going to run. You're not going to work with chronic alcoholics or whatever it is that each person in the room wants. You try to set the scenario as real as possible. And so, and they had different takes on like some of these questioning things that I put in the back of my mind. I didn't start teaching it again until a couple of years ago because the basic NLP is powerful. The mirroring, the matching, the asking the right questions, the meta programs. If you add the waking hypnosis, which I fought teaching for a long time, and not that crap that most people call waking or Ericksonian hypnosis, where they just try to sound smart. But the stuff that really works, because I always say that some of the best people I've ever met in my life are in the world of hypnosis, NLP, coaching, therapy. These, most people here, want to help people. But some of the most egotistical, self-centered, and manipulative people I've ever met in my life are in this field, right? And some of them are quite good at it, right? Because I think they just lose all sense of grounding. You got the trainers, in my opinion, the most dangerous thing about an NLP or hypnosis trainer is when they only hang around with their students, right? They have no peers, right? I know even the organization I consult for now, we have I missed it this week, but we have a peer meeting once a week among the psychologists, right? And then there's a general meeting with the mental health staff and this and that, right? And because it loses that sense of grounding, right? So anyway, so I started teaching again because around 2000, during the COVID, a lot of people that are retired from the FBI, the CIA, certain military organizations started teaching this, usually for the business applications of it, right? And it's like, this. So I run it through our NFNLP, if you will, or NLP filter. As Kara said too, if you take general knowledge over here, if you have this skill set and you run it through that filter, it gives a different, we get a different viewpoint. So started teaching again. I'm really excited. That's what it's going to be part of the basic NLP course, adding, what they deem. I was digging a hole, so I got a blister in my hand. It's killing me. Right? I don't do manual labor too often, but it was, my wife's like, oh, big big bad guy can't dig the hole. I'll do this. So anyway, but some of the stuff they do and putting it together, and then the other thing you get like people trained in negotiation, people trained in behavioral profiling. Some they don't interact a lot, or the people that really influence people at these levels, like with certain agencies trying to get people to cooperate, flip, confess, do that. That's a different skill set, and sometimes they don't all come together, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do. So it's a work in progress, but like the no set give people the ability to say no. Always ask, and rather than say, is this a good idea? If you flip it with, is this a ridiculous idea, or whatever vernacular fits you? Is it a silly idea? Is this an insane idea? And it flips people this. And the last thing that kind of comes out of that is one of my favorite sayings. I've been bringing it back into my vernacular is when somebody asks me to do something, is the statement, how am I supposed to do that? Right? Because it makes the person you're talking to flip into your viewpoint a little bit to explain this is how you have to do that. Right? So, how am I supposed to do that? Right? I'll close with the example of I was calling around and looking at it. When I get depressed, I want to go buy a new car. I've done this for a long time, right? And so I was calling around and I was talking to one person about it, and they said something, and I go, whoo, whatever the price was. I go, how am I supposed to do that? And they go, well, Doc, I shouldn't have told them that I was like Dr. Will, because then they think you got money, right? Then you're calling a Lexus dealer, for God's sakes. But it's like, he goes, well, we have incentives and we have these other programs, and we, right? And I love the term gently used vehicles we could get you in, right? And I'm like, just by asking, how am I supposed to do that? And he starts giving me the steps, right? And so that was kind of interesting. So that's, excuse me, let me remove the pen. So that's really all I was going to throw out there today, the stuff I'm working on. If you want more information, just direct message me, get you the info on that stuff. And again, just any books or Audible books or podcasts too, I could get into. Because I got this trip coming up, and I don't like listening to music when I drive anymore. I'd rather listen to a podcast or especially an Audible book or something more creative, because I did read a thing, and this guy was trying to say that, like, because he said he was at the gym working out. I forget who it was. It was a podcast. And he goes, you get these guys in there, not to stereotype, but the guys that like haven't changed their workouts in 30 years, right? Yeah. And they're still doing a workout that worked in your 20s or 30s that may not work in your 50s, right? And he goes, and you're still listening to the same music, right? And he went on this tangent about listening to new music. If you're going to listen to music, listen to new music. If you repeat the old music over and over again, you're creating no new neural pathways. It's also how I became a Taylor Swift fan. I started listening to this. I go, hey, this is just like, it's Carole King on steroids, and it's like, I got into it, right? And that's just what he said, create new neural pathways rather than, I'm still going to listen to, not to pick on anybody in the group, but like, I like the Eagles, but I'm not listening to it anymore. I've been to Hotel California, and it took me 10 years to check out of that damn place. So, so that's what I'm trying to do is listen to new things and keep repeating and going over. So any information you have, would be greatly appreciated, you know. Cool. So, comments, complaints,
I
as
hope
we
you have a great road trip, but good luck, and I hope it goes smoothly and safely.
yeah, I'll be up there for the 4th, which is cool because my nephew is a great cook and he always makes these ribs to die for the 4th of July. So
Nice.
cool.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know when the no is really a no then? If often the no is a yes or an
Oh,
open.
well, thanks for the question. I meant to say that too. Is this happened to me the other day? I asked somebody called about, oh, they wanted to take the class, and I called, and then I didn't hear back. So, you know, um, I said when we did start talking, I said, so, have you given up on the idea of taking this class? Uh, and you know, uh, that was a good no when they said no. But I was talking to somebody else, and I said, uh, you know, when they said yes, that they'd given up on it, I went, okay, talk to you later, and I hung up. I said, well, there's nothing for me to say. And they call back and they go, well, I thought you were going to like pitch me more. I'm like, no, you don't want to be in, excuse my language, fucking class. I don't want you in the fucking class. It's that simple. I don't try to sell you anything. And then, you know, they bought. They go, I can't be there live. Is it recorded? I said, well, yes, of course it's recorded. But anyway, so
Was that the takeaway sale?
yeah, well, it was true when he said, he's kind of given up. I'm like, I don't want to talk him into anything. Because if I told you I'd given up on it and you kept talking, then, I think he was surprised. I said, okay, sorry for that. Have a great day. Click. And so, does that make sense, Miss Kara?
Yeah, I think I'm taking it as you're just going with the flow more and
Yeah.
not taking it, and there's a malleability to people's yes or no, and once they have the space to say them, then they can have the space to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't, a lot of people don't give them the space. They just take the one time as this word, and then the changes and the transformation doesn't happen.
Yeah. I forget which marketer always says when you hear that, always say, well, I hope you find what you're looking for.
Mhm.
And then exit stage left. In your case,
Sounds healthy.
stage left.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is this based on truisms, right? The yes no patterns.
Yeah, but I think what happens, they take a generality and make it too specific.
Mhm. Yeah, because it doesn't matter if they say yes or no, you're just kind of leading, you're kind of just building the trust and rapport by asking these questions, and then they're uh and even with the no statements, it's still kind of building the trust, right?
Yeah. All right.
Wouldn't the high stakes negotiations when you're actually trying to prevent someone from killing people, or that would probably be one of the only times that you're actually manipulating the situation and right with a goal.
Nah, you manipulate everything all the time. Everybody's manipulating.
Well, that's
Have,
not what
have
I
you
want. I
seen
want people to use
advertising
their free
today?
will. Hmm?
Well, they
No, I
still have
see
free
advertising.
will,
I
but
mean you in a healthy situation, not corporations doing mind control like they do.
well,
But I mean, that's not what I want, because that's not going to find loving relationships. That's just going to be
yeah,
negative manipulation. Uh, I want free will choosing itself. And that sounds more like you were talking before, as when you go with the flow, then the person's choosing
yeah,
the way that they're choosing.
yeah,
I have to ask a question, Kara. There's a difference between manipulation and working towards agreement. I'm a husband. I could tell you that you may call it manipulation, but I'm working towards agreement, not in terms of manipulating somebody in a nasty way, because that never works, but yet working towards an agreement is kind of what we try to do to life. So, people don't give us all their preparation H.
Well, I guess it's not manipulation in the case that you're bringing up, though, because you're stating what your goal is, right? And in the case of someone who's mentally ill and about to shoot up people, um,
Well, you
you
always,
can't tell them everything because they don't have the capacity to handle it.
yeah, and they always talk about you have the known knowns, right? We know what we know. Then there's unknown knowns that things we think we know. But the hardest thing to get to is the unknown unknowns. If there's info you don't know. I mean, they give the story of it's only happened a couple times where rarely when there's a hostage situation, right? And we listen to the tapes on the one the guy talks about, right? Where they took some bank anyway. It's a horrible situation, because they operated on the assumption that this guy wants to live, right? He took the hostages because he wants money and he wants to live. Well, no, his goal walking in there, because the unknown was he'd already shot his mother, his father, and his brother, and they were dead. When he took the bank, he wanted suicide by cop. That was the unknown unknowns, and they so when it happens, so it changed how they looked at. They're always looking for what could be going on that we don't know, right? And with the NLP and hypnosis world, that's what I call it the meta questioning. What do you want? What would that do for you? What else would it do for you? How will this affect other people? All of these questions, they start revealing because sometimes you don't know or I know in my case, I don't know what's really driving me a lot of the time, unless someone starts asking me the right questions.
Mm.
It's what the whole 12-step world is. You hear other opinions, you hear your story and someone else, and you go, oh, maybe that's it. So, yeah, the unknown unknowns. That's kind of weird. That's hard. I remember when they were teaching, I'm like, this is weird shit. It makes sense, but it's weird.
No, it's good to thank you for remind us about that because there are way more unknown unknowns than there always are. We just aren't aware of them.
And then that guy, his name's Chris Voss. His company's called Black Swan, or something Black Swan. But he uses the analogy of no one in the world. They always talked about there's no such thing as a black swan in Europe, and until they discovered black swans in Australia. And they have a black swan event. That's when what you used to think is not true, now you know is true. Right? So that's the black swan event. I'm like, I like that because, in our world, how many people, I just had this conversation with a guy trying to help him just casually because I do care, contrary to popular belief. And he's like, it was about giving up tobacco products because he quit smoking, right? But he's going through like 6 cans of chew a week, and his teeth are falling out and all this others. And I'm like, well, you should, not me. I'm like, look up hypnosis for smoking and tobacco. And that he goes, well, that doesn't work. And I'm like, well, what makes you think it does? Well, I was trying to, well, I guess you could say manipulate him. I was trying to get him to like open up to see if there's some alternatives, right? So, and I don't know where it'll go. I just put it out there. I go, just Google it. Jesus Christ, it's all over the place. Hypnosis for this, hypnosis for that. Plus, it would be
Dr. Will, the Black Swan is also a very good book by Nicholas Taleb if you're looking for something to read. Um, it deals with the uncertainty that you're talking about,
the uncertainty principle.
Well, it deals with it in a larger context of economy and people. But you might like it if you're looking for something, and you brought Black Swans. But Taleb, yeah, it was a bestseller.
Okay, cool. Because I can drive and listen to that, which keeps me awake. But then my brain hurts because I'm creating new neurons. But wait, the football season's around the corner where I can turn off my brain for several hours on the weekend. as I, vicariously get more concussions, so. Cool.
Dr. Will, if you're looking for a book about longevity, How Not to Die is a good one. I can't remember the doctor's name who wrote it, but he cured himself from a brain tumor. This guy created the CT scan, and one day his student didn't show up who signed up to volunteer to get a CT scan, so he did the CT scan himself, and he discovered he had a brain tumor. And then he talks about how he cured himself of cancer and all that.
Right.
It's a good book.
That's a cool title too.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. All right. And I got to send off my callback audition. So Miss Maria knows about those in a weird way,
My husband just found out he got into the academy. So he's going to be part of the Motion Picture Academy, and we get the app that has all the movies that are nominated for the Oscars.
My old voice teacher, back when they were physical, you'd go to his house and he'd always have these big stacks of,
yeah,
hey, you want to watch this?
Yeah, now it's just on your Apple TV, so it's nice.
The Academy of Motion Picture Science. Yeah, cool. Well, tell them congratulations.
Thanks, I will.
Cool.
Oh, and yeah, Dr. Horton.
Oh, and if I get this gig, I got to join SAG. So.
Yeah, if anybody wants to get into this course, just email you, and I could put them into the course in the back end.
Okay.
Oh.
Cool. Yeah, just reach out. All right, everyone. Talk to you later.
Have a great Fourth.
Yeah,
have a great Fourth.
Stay free. Freedom.
Is it a crazy idea that in 2 days, you could walk away from this convention with a system that changes every client conversation you'll ever have? You've been doing hypnosis for years, you're good. But there's always that client, the one who's resistant, the one where nothing lands. Here's what nobody taught you. Resistance isn't a client problem, it's a language problem. Dr. William Horton has spent 40 years figuring out how the FBI negotiates impossible situations, how military intelligence profiles anyone in 90 seconds, and how waking hypnosis bypasses the critical factor in everyday conversation. He put all of it into one system, Essentials of NLP Certification Training Course, post-convention. 2 days in Marlborough, Massachusetts, August 10th and 11th, 2026. Register now at ngh.net/course #223, because the best hypnotist in the room isn't the one who knows the most inductions. It's the one who never needs to convince anyone of anything. Naturally.